Mendocino Local Agency Formation Commission on November 1st. And staff, would you please call the roll?
Yes, good morning. Commissioner Orth,
Here.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Here.
Commissioner Ward,
Here.
Commissioner Frohnberger,
Here.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Here.
Commissioner McGordy, Commissioner Mulhern,
Here.
Commissioner Winkle,
Here.
Commissioner Roden,
Present.
and Commissioner Haschak. And apologies from Commissioner Bazzani for her absence. Staff members present include Executive Officer Uma Hinman, Analyst Larkin Filer, and our legal counsel, Mr. Scott Brown.
Thank you, Ms. Meadows. And with that, we'll move to public expression. And EO Uman will describe how you can participate should there be a member of the public wishing to speak during public expression today.
Thank you, Chair Orth. If wishing to speak, please state your name for the record so that you can be identified. To provide comments, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. For those accessing from a computer or smartphone, just use the raise hand function by selecting the icon. For members utilizing the telephone option, audio only, please use the raise hand feature by pressing *9 on your keypad to raise your hand and *6 to unmute yourself. When it is your turn to speak, you will be called upon by the last 4 digits of your phone number, if available, and asked to identify yourself for the record. And it looks like we have one member of the public who is with us, Mr. Craig Slaughter.
Yes, and if you wish to speak, Mr. Slaughter, now would be your moment to raise your hand. And thank you. Seeing none, we'll move to our consent calendar today, 3A through 3C. Are there any items to pull by commissioners before we go to a motion? Mr. Ward.
I just had a question on the resolution for the meetings. I believe it's to the 4th, but our December 6th meeting, is that going to have an issue? So it's beyond 30 days.
We have a special meeting scheduled for November 8th, so we will include another resolution on the consent calendar for that date so that we will be covered for December 6th.
So are we going to be doing this every month like this? Or at which time can we actually meet in person? Do you know? Is there any indication of that?
Not yet, but I'll be working with the county to figure out when the Board of Supervisors is going to start meeting and when the board chambers is ready. And then we will likely go on their coattails on that one.
Okay, thank you.
And I believe that's the plan of the commission, is when the Board of Supervisors goes back into meeting in public again, that is when this commission will also take that up. Is there any other items commissioners wish to pull, or any member of the public wishing to speak to an item on our consent calendar today? If not, I'm looking for a motion to approve today's consent calendar.
I would like to so move.
So seconded, Ignacio.
Is there any discussion on any of the items in the consent calendar? There being none, go ahead and conduct the roll call, Clerk Meadows.
Okay, Commissioner Frohnberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulhern,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes. Thank you, staff. And thank you, commissioners. This is moving pretty quick because we have no public hearing items today. We have no workshop items today. So we'll move to 6A, which is a report from the EO on the Sustainable Architectural Lands Committee Grant Project. And I'll turn it over to EO Hinman.
Thank you, Chair Orth. I'm going to share a screen and do a brief presentation. Just give me a moment. Everyone can see the PowerPoint? Okay, great, thank you. So this is an update on the Mendocino County Sustainable Agricultural Land Conservation Grant Project and LAFCO's role in that project. The project is the Sustainable Agricultural Lands Conservation Program is a component of the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program and through the California Strategic Growth Council. The local SALC, or Sustainable Agricultural Lands Committee, is managed by the Mendocino County Agricultural Commission and the Mendocino County RCD, or Resource Conservation District. In 2015, those agencies were able to obtain a grant to develop the Sustainable Agricultural Land Strategy, which was completed and adopted in 2017. There was a risk assessment as part of that report that found that up to 90% of important agricultural lands are at the risk of conversion to residential development within the county. The highest risk areas are within municipal services boundaries, within spheres of influence, and in the Ukiah Valley area within 2 miles of those areas. So you can see the nexus with LAFCO. So they also found that in Mendocino County, there is a substantial housing shortage. So fast forward a few years, in 2019, 2020, a group of agencies teamed to develop and submit an application for a SALC grant to build on that 2017 strategy. And that grant was awarded in 2020. The project partners include Mendocino County Department of Agriculture through the Ag Commissioner's Office, the Mendocino County RCD, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, the Mendocino County Farm Bureau, LAFCO, Mendocino Land Trust, the Inland Mendocino County Land Trust, and the Anderson Valley Land Trust. The goals of the project are to protect valuable agricultural lands while also supporting sustainable housing development. And again, that is to build on the 2017 strategy, and also through increasing community support for a growth management program that acknowledges the value of both housing and important agricultural land, and includes reasonable growth, urban growth boundaries. Another goal is to build a sustainable and resilient agricultural community through promotion of climate beneficial farming practices that sequester carbon and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. There are 4 objectives for the project: to develop an agricultural component for a future Mendocino County Climate Action Plan, or CAP, to expand the carbon farm planning program and local soil health initiative, to increase the participation in the Williamson Act and conservation easement programs, and increase communication with diverse stakeholders regarding the coalescence of agricultural land conservation and sustainable housing development. Our role is really limited to objective 4, and that is to increase the communication with stakeholders. Through that, we attend monthly SALC meetings, which is usually the second Monday of the month. I will note that Commissioner McGowdy also attends on behalf of the Mendocino County Board of Supervisors. We also assist with organizing and convening stakeholder meetings to explain agricultural land strategy and participate in meetings discussing zoning and housing. And then our final piece of the task will be to assist with distributing project-related educational materials. There are a number of deliverables, sorry about that, to develop an agricultural component for the future Mendocino County Climate Action Plan, to expand the carbon farm planning program and soil health initiative, and that's through development of emission reduction targets for the agricultural sector, conducting 10 soil health assessments for grape growers, and development and presentation at workshops for climate beneficial farming practices and soil health and carbon farm plans. For the Williamson and conservation task, the goal is to increase participation in those programs, and so they will be, the deliverables include monitoring and promoting that Williamson Act program, performing targeted outreach to owners of agricultural parcels, and development and presentation of workshops for farmland conservation. The outreach deliverables again include the monthly meetings of the SALC partners, stakeholder meetings, an updated GIS file and data layers, and those were created with the 2017 strategy and updated for this project, and the development of educational materials and distribution of those for the outreach portion. Several fact sheets have been created: the Agricultural Lands Committee fact sheet, the Conservation Easement fact sheet, and the Williamson Act. And those all can be located on the Mendocino County RCD website under the SALC program. The original schedule for the grant project was March 2020 through January 2022. They have requested an extension of time, not of budget, but of time, to allow for a grant completion on April 30th. So all deliverables would be due by March 31st by the partners, and then they would do grant wrap up. The overall grant funding award was $208,600, and there was a match funding component of about $43,000. LAFCO's budget was a grant funding of just over $10,000 with a match funding requirement of $4,000. You can see in the table on the screen that LAFCO has documented all of the match funding requirement and has billed just under $1,500 to date. The LAFCO's participation in the project, again, is through outreach. So most of that has been documented through implementation of our work plan. So discussion of the spheres of influence and participation in those meetings, and discussion and outreach with agencies through pre-application reviews and project meetings. You'll note that we are under the budget for the grant award. That's primarily due to the workloads that we have been experiencing within the timeframe of the project. Additionally, pandemic limitations on meetings in person have resulted in coming in under budget on the full scale on the overall. So if I have, that's all I have for a presentation. If there's anyone that has questions, I'm happy to answer.
So open it to commissioners, and Commissioner Gonzalez, go ahead.
Just one question, Uma, do we link this information off our website? So if somebody happens to say, what's LAFCO's involvement, they can click and it would go to RCD website?
That's a great question. We do not currently have a link, but that's something that we can work on for this coming month.
Thank you.
I can't see all the commissioners at this time to know that. Okay, is there any further questions from commissioners? Please indicate. Yes, Mr. Ward.
Yeah, Uma, thanks for the presentation. You know, obviously LAFCO's purposes are to conserve open space and promote efficient public services as well as housing and whatnot. So what did we get out of the $4,000 basically? I know we're doing our SOIs and all that, but obviously we won't see the report until probably March, but what do you see the benefit of that $4,000?
A lot of it has been communication. And again, the $4,000 was a match that was documented through our normal work activities. So there was no out of budget expenditures for this project. So the benefits to LAFCO have really been communication. There has been a lot of dialogue between the partners about the Ukiah Valley sphere updates and the pressures on housing and development. So that has been a large benefit. And then the GIS mapping is going to be another benefit to LAFCO as we get into the sphere updates. We will have accurate maps of the agricultural lands that meet the various definitions that are required for LAFCO to review.
But we would be doing that anyway without this grant. We would be doing our normal businesses like GIS and SOIs and MSRs, correct? I mean, why participate? We were already doing it.
Part of it is to expand the discussion among the partners, so we get feedback from the Agricultural Commissioner and the various members, the RCD in particular. So part of it is to increase that discussion among the members, and also the GIS mapping goes into a greater level of detail than the county GIS maps do. So the county GIS mapping focuses on the Department of Conservation definitions of agricultural lands, whereas this process delves more into a more detailed description of the agricultural lands.
Okay, thank you.
And I can add to that because I'm a associate director on the RCD, is that RCD does have very detailed soil maps, the soil type maps throughout the county, and the ag lands are not a great amount of land mass within the county. So that detail is going to be great for us to have in the future. Further questions from commissioners? I'm seeing none. Any public comment? Raise your hand, please. Craig, if you wish to speak on this. And do we have any other public members in the meeting today, Uma?
No other public members.
All right, then we'll move the agenda. Thank you for that report. Much appreciated. And we'll move to 6B, which is the CALAFCO white paper, metamorphosis of special districts, current methods of consolidation, dissolution, subsidiary districts, formation, and merger. It was an extensive guidelines. And would you please report on that, staff?
Thank you, Chair Orris. I'm going to again share my screen. Hopefully this works. Okay, this was prepared and distributed in July of this year. This was prepared by BBK, attorneys at law for CalAFCO. This was an update to a previous metamorphosis of special districts white paper. So this memo discusses the current methods for consolidation, dissolution, and subsidiary district formation and mergers. The white paper addresses two questions. What are the ways in which a special district may be modified under the CKH or Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act? And that's through consolidation, dissolution, merger, and establishment of a subsidiary district. And how does the CKH restrict the processes to modify special districts? There are several ways to initiate proceedings. LAFCO can initiate them. The districts can initiate them, and they can be initiated through petition. So if they are LAFCO initiated, they must be consistent with recommendations or conclusions of a study prepared per CKH. So that would be through municipal service reviews, sphere of influence updates, or other special study that was prepared under the CKH. If initiated by LAFCO, there are a number of required determinations. And one is that the public service costs of a proposal is likely to be less than or substantially similar to the costs of an alternate means of providing the service. And modification promotes public access and accountability for community services needs and financial resources. If it's LAFCO initiated, the CKH also encourages utilizing a reorganization committee to bring the agencies and stakeholders to the table for discussion of the process. Again, for those that are LAFCO initiated, specifically for consolidations, if there's a conflicting proposal submitted within 60 days of the submission of the original consolidation proposal, LAFCO must first consider the second proposal before it acts on the first. The protest thresholds for LAFCO initiated are 10 to 25%, depending on population of territory. If it's district initiated, the typical process through the CKH is carried out. The protest thresholds are 25% within the affected territory without objection by resolution. If a district objects by resolution, it is 25% of the landowners and voters within any agency within the affected territory. If the proposal is petition initiated for consolidation, merger, and establishment of subsidiary districts, it requires 5% of the registered voters or landowner voters to submit on the petition. If it is for dissolution, it is a 10% of the registered voters or landowners required. There are a number of limitations, so I'm just going to briefly go over those for each of these modifications. For consolidations, before 2005, a consolidation of 2 or more special districts required that those districts operate under the same principal act. After 2005, that was changed so that the consolidation of 2 or more special districts could be formed with different principal acts. Limitations on mergers. A city must consent to a merger affecting its territory, whether or not LAFCO initiates it or the voters approve it. All proposals for a merger must also consider the establishment of a subsidiary district as well. That also holds true for subsidiary districts. All proposals for a establishment of a subsidiary district must also consider a merger, and the city must consent to the subsidiary district being formed if it affects its territory. A subsidiary district may also only be established if it meets certain statutory requirements regarding the amount of territory and voters within the governing city's territory. I spent a little more time today on the subsidiary districts because I think that we are less familiar with them. So by definition, a subsidiary district includes the entire territory of the district that is included within the boundaries of a city. And a portion or portions of the territory of the district are included within the boundaries of a city, and that portion or portions meets the following thresholds. It represents 70% or more of the area of land within the district and contains 70% or more of the number of registered voters who reside within the district. So upon establishment of a subsidiary district, the City Council is designated as the ex officio board of directors, and the district then operates as a separate legal entity with all powers, rights, duties, obligations, and functions provided for by the Principal Act. If it is city or petition initiated, LAFCO is required to provide notice to subject districts within 10 days of receiving the proposal. And the district options are to either consent to the proposal or adopt a resolution of intent to file an alternative proposal, in which case LAFCO is required to delay any action for 70 days. Also, if an alternative proposal is submitted, then there would be simultaneous consideration at a single hearing by the Commission. The white paper includes a number of other resources which are valuable for the processing of applications. In the appendices include the factors to be reviewed for proposals. It includes the contents of a proposal application and the contents of a resolution of petition or application. It also includes the CKH section for the plan for providing services. And that concludes my presentation. If there's any questions.
Commissioners, I open, go ahead, Commissioner Gonzalez.
I guess I'm trying to wrap my head around subsidiary districts. The Fort Bragg Fire be a good example where it kind of overlaps with the city, or am I thinking, is that, I guess I'm trying to think of an example in the county.
I believe the Fort Bragg Fire is a fire authority through a JPA, but what would be a good example is the Fort Bragg Municipal Improvement District, which is a subsidiary district of the city.
Thank you for that clarification.
Other questions from commissioners? Commissioner Ward.
Yes, thanks, Uma, for putting this on. I think I asked for this maybe a few months back because it was pretty pertinent to what we were looking at in the next few months. So thank you for that. I rather read your presentation rather than reading the Best and Kruger memorandum. It was a little more detailed. One of the questions I did have is how do these accounts or the answers, I guess, and questions, how do they apply to our policies and procedure? Do we need to add to our policy and procedures, or they include everything that's in this document?
I don't believe there's anything we need to add at this time. I think that the discussion about the subsidiary districts is interesting. I know that it's something that's been discussed at various times through sphere of influence updates, and I think that we will be, having that discussion again in the future. I don't think there's any need to update our policies and procedures at this time.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a question, Uma, and for our council as well, and that is specifically right now we have a district annexing city territory. The only thing I found close to that is under page 66 of 77, which is the factors appendix A under section 56668-3. Would you speak to how our current process is reflected in this document, which is a district annexing the territory within a city?
Well, these are part of our factors for consideration that we did include in the staff report for the public hearing for considering that application. Yeah, I mean, all of these apply to the applications as we review, and I don't know if Scott has anything to add to that.
Scott, you're muted.
No, I mean, they're there, and those are the things we consider. And, and we certainly are, the commission should consider them when the issues are raised by the public.
As to that, in the 25% protest level, does LAFCO in our hearing, the protest hearing, how do we arrive at understanding that 25%? Is it the ballots that have been returned up to the time at the end of our hearing?
Yes, it closes at the end of the hearing. The real question is, what is the number that is used to set the denominator?
Okay. Is that determined prior to the end of the hearing, or is it something that is looked at once all ballots are received?
Well, this is actually an issue that is unsettled because Cortese Knox doesn't say. But there is a case out of San Mateo County where the executive officer decided to use the number of registered voters at the end of the protest proceeding.
Mm-hmm.
This upset the protesters because they've been counting on it being the number of protest registered voters before the commencement of the proceeding. And it made a difference. So I'm not sure it would make a difference in this case.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other questions from commissioners? Yes, go ahead, Commissioner Roden. You're muted.
No, I know. Yeah, so when we have our protest hearing on the 8th regarding the annexation by the Ukiah Valley Fire District of the city, I think would be really important. You're probably already planning to do this, Uma, but to announce at the beginning, what is the denominator, so everybody realizes it's fair. This is a fair hearing. We're looking at registered voters, and 25% is X, number X. So it occurred to me that'd be really important to say that at the outset. So people say, hey, you changed the rules during the hearing. That was all I wanted to say.
That is a very good point, and we will need to ascertain with the elections department exactly what that number is for the November 8th.
And should the 25% number be reached, then LAFCO will be holding that election process. It doesn't go to the clerk of Mendocino.
No, I don't think LAFCO does it. Actually, I think the city does it.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from commissioners? And I would note, yes, I'll get to you. First of all, there were a couple commissioners that came on board after a roll call, so please make note of that and go ahead. Go ahead, Matt, please.
Thank you, Chair. So the 25%, I'm still a little confused. Are we talking about registered voters within the sphere that's within the area of annexation? Or are we talking about overall or the annexer? I'm assuming it's the area of annexation.
Yes.
So they have, the people that live in the city of Ukiah have
Yeah.
to agree with that, or at least not more than 25% disagree.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Well put. Any further questions from commissioners? And thank you for the presentation and the definitions as caught up by use by other LAFCOs. And with that, we'll move to item 7, information and report items. We'll go to 7A, which is our work plan, current and future proposals. Go ahead, Uma.
Thank you. So we have a number of active proposals. The Ukiah Valley Fire District annexation of the city of Ukiah, as we've been discussing, there is a special meeting that will be held on November 8th for the protest hearing. We have been receiving protests in the office, and we'll have a record, and I appreciate the comments from Commissioner Roden that we will have that information available and make it very clear in our presentation at the beginning of the meeting what those thresholds are. We are still hoping to meet a December 1st deadline for submittal of the complete packet to the Board of Equalizations so that the changes on the tax roll will be reflected in the following fiscal year. The city of Ukiah's annexation of city-owned properties, the tax share negotiation process is in progress. We have no further information at this time on that one. There's been no change to the applications for the detachment of Ukiah Valley Sanitation District served areas or the pre-application for the annexation of areas north of the city. The Millview County Water District pre-application for annexation of the Masonite properties. We did receive public notice from the district that they have a draft mitigated negative declaration for the annexation of, I believe it's 26 parcels and 246 acres within the Masonite area. So that includes the Masonite properties and areas to the east that are bordered by the river. So the public comment period is November 4th to December 6th. So we'll be reviewing those documents and submitting comments on that. There are 2 potential future projects, the city of Ukiah annexation of the Western Hills and the Elk Community Services District activation of latent powers for wastewater services. Those have not yet been submitted, so we will update when that happens. For the work plan, we have completed the Covelo CSD, MSR, and Sphere update, as well as the Ukiah Valley Fire District. We have a rough administrative draft of the County Service Area 3, MSR, and Sphere update, and we will be reaching out to the county and start working through that process with them. Staff has met with City of Ukiah and Ukiah Valley Sanitation District staff And we are continuing to work through ideas on how to get those two started. There are attachment tables to this item that start on page 74. So if there are any updates or questions on those, I'd be happy to answer them.
Open to questions, commissioners. Any public comment? Please raise your hand. Seeing none, we will move on to 7B correspondence.
We have no correspondence to report.
Then we will move on to 7C CALAFCO Business and Legislative Report.
In your packet, on the last page, 77, is a flyer on the November 3rd webinar for the New Era State of the State, what you need to know about extreme weather, water, and fire issues. So this is on Wednesday. The deadline for registration is today at 5 o'clock. It is free to CalAFCO members, and my understanding is that includes the special districts of the county, since they are, we do have special district representation on our commission, and then also cities as well. So we did send that out to our list and advertise that for CalAFCO. The regional roundtables will be held in December of this year. I don't have dates yet, and I will forward that when they are announced. And they also announced that the executive director search has been extended until early 2022. Apparently they received only a couple of proposals, and they would like to widen their search. And that's all I have to report at this time.
Any questions from commissioners? Would you repeat the email that tells commissioners how to sign up for CalAFCO webinars? Since there's a 5 o'clock sign-in
Yes.
deadline.
So if you go to the agenda packet and you go to the flyer, there is a registration link on the flyer, and you can just, that'll take you directly to the registration page.
And does that just require us to enter our name in the fact that we're a commissioner on the LAFCO?
Yes, just state Mendocino LAFCO Commissioner,
All right.
and that suffices.
So anyone who wishes to register, you have till 5 o'clock today. Any questions from commissioners on that? Any public comments on that? All right, there being none, we'll go to 7D Executive Officers Report, and we'll go back to Executive Officer Hinman.
Thank you. We are almost finished with the year-end financial report for the audit, and we'll have that treasurer board this week for review. The protest hearing process and mailing has been completed. That was quite the effort, and staff put in a lot of extra hours to get that done, so I want to thank them. We've been fielding quite a few questions from the public, and our website has a lot of the information that is relating to this application and the process. If commissioners get questions, please direct them to our website under the November 8th special meeting. That's where we're posting all of the documents. There's also a couple of frequently asked question sheets that have been put together by the fire district and the city, one in English and one in Spanish as well. That is all I have to report on the executive officer's report, unless there are questions.
Any questions from commissioners? Any questions from the public? We have a hand raised by Doug Hutchinson. So, Mr. Hutchinson, you have the floor if you wish to unmute yourself. Uma, does he need help unmuting?
I don't see a hand raised on my screen. So
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what?
speak.
That's my cursor looking like a hand. Why would it look like a hand? Boy, fooled me. Sorry, Doug. Okay, then, no questions coming forward, then we'll move on to 7E committee reports.
We have not held any committees meetings. We have been attempting to schedule a meeting with the Policies and Procedures Committee as well as the Work Plan Ad Hoc Committee. So I encourage the commissioners to please respond to the emails and the doodle polls so that we can get those two scheduled.
Right, thank you. With that, commissioner reports, please just raise your hand if you wish to report on anything that's happened to you and yours in your area of concerns. Do any commissioners wish to make comments during our reporting section? Okay, Glenn, I see your hand is up, so go ahead, please.
Hi, everyone. I apologize for not logging in on time. I was having problems getting my router synchronized with my computer. I have no idea why, but it eventually worked. I just wanted to let everybody know that we had a meeting, an ad hoc meeting with Congressman Huffman on Friday over the Potter Valley project. And there's been some developments in that. The original plan of the ad hoc committee was to take over the license of PG&E. And in order to do that, we needed to have grant money to continue studies. And we've been unsuccessful. So basically the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC as it's known, has given us a deadline to sort of do or die by April 14th, I think. And I'm pretty sure we won't make that. So there's the future for how Russian River water users continue the diversions is kind of up in the air, and it's pretty stressful. And there's a lot of angst in the community. There was, prior to the meeting, Farm Bureau sent out a letter to the congressman with 750 signatories to it, expressing concerns about what's going on with the project and why the necessary studies haven't been financed. Before the letter was even received, Congressman Huffman responded somewhat defensively, and so there's a lot of uncertainty and how we're going to move forward on this. And it basically comes down to, if the dam comes down, there's 1,200 million cubic yards of material that would have to pulse 172 miles north to the ocean. And that's quite a pulse of stuff. It would totally overwhelm the diversion that we have at Van Arsdale. So these are really complicated issues for decommissioning the dam. But since this group is involved so much in regional water supplies, I just wanted to give you a quick update so you know what's going on. It's a very uncertain situation. I won't say it's a bad one, but it sure is uncertain as to how this is going to move forward. The other issue, of course, is that Lake County is not in favor of taking down the dam. A lot of people in Potter Valley also are not in favor of taking down the dam. So there's a lot of political disagreement on this whole issue. So that's what I have to report. Stand by for more information as it becomes public.
Thank you for the update, Commissioner. Any other commissioner reports today? Then I hope to see you all for the protest hearing on the 8th. Go ahead, Matt.
I think Uma actually had her hand up. I just wanted to make sure she got heard.
Uma, did you have your hand up?
Thank you. I guess I had a follow-up question for Commissioner McGorty. If the deadline, the FERC deadline is not met, what is the next steps or what happens next?
So essentially, PG&E would surrender its license, which sounds really shocking, but it's not. And in reality, they'll be obliged to take care of the situation for quite a few years as they decommission. But the other wild card in this is that the transformer array supposedly is not working. So with the transformers offline, they can't run the generators. And the immediate concern is that normally the winter is when they really make hay with those generators, and they're moving almost 270 cubic feet per second through the tunnel. So at the moment, they're bypassing it with about 45 cubic feet per second, or they have the ability to do that. I'm not sure if they're doing it right now. But the max they would be able to get out is about 145 cubic feet per second with the bypass. So that has big implications for Lake Mendocino in terms of filling it, because there's a lot of water that flows through that system in the wintertime. Probably in the course of a year, 90,000 acre feet go through the Potter Valley project and into Lake Mendocino. And remember that the capacity of Lake Mendocino in terms of its useful amount of water is around 80,000 acre feet. So that also is going to impact us. So even if we're on our way to a drought recovery, even if we have a kind of normal rainfall, it's going to be very, very difficult for Lake Mendocino to fill based on that. So that's the biggest impact immediately that we're concerned about. Kind of the action that the Inland Water Power Commission is taking is that they're, and also Sonoma County Water Agency, they're now talking directly with Department of Water Resources about what can we do to straighten this out and make it so that we have a reliable water supply. You know, it's a big deal. It's a big deal for the community, and the timing couldn't be worse because we're just not in a good water situation at the moment in terms of stored water. So hopefully we'll see a little bit more normal winter rainfall. We've got about a 50-50 chance according to my climatology friends.
Go ahead, Mari.
Yeah, I'm just curious, Glenn, if you can shed any light on what FERC's perspective is on this. Do they just look narrowly at energy and, you know, the generation of power, or do they look at a bigger picture of water supply issues in a community? I've always been curious about that, their perspective, and it's so important in determining what happens here.
They're only concerned really about hydropower, and you know, the Potter Valley project is small chains and kind of a annoyance to them, probably more than anything. It takes forever. Even the last cycle for them to license the Potter Valley project, I think they started in 1972, and they didn't finish until like 2002 or something. So it's a very slow process, and it's complicated because of endangered species. So they really don't care about anything other than energy generation. That's the concern. And we know Congressman Huffman is very interested in the environmental perspective of taking down the dam to improve fisheries. We don't have any real data on what that's going to look like if the dam comes down, and that's my old saying, in God we trust. Everybody else bring data, because to make a really good decision, you have to know what's going to happen. So we don't really know what the quality of the habitat is above the dam. We don't know. The biggest concern is if you take the dam down, that silt's got to go somewhere. So you know, it probably moves, that load of silt would move forward at the rate of 3 or 4 miles per year. So 172 miles is a long ways to go before it reaches the ocean. And what happens in the meantime is a big, big question.
Yeah, I can see that, you know, that's why these studies are so important, and the funding to implement the studies is so crucial. So anyway, I signed on to that letter too from the Farm Bureau, and I hope we can, you know, get the studies done. Anyway,
I hope so too.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I don't know, I kind of don't understand what the holdup is on the congressman's part. It seems like what the amount of money necessary to do the studies is modest, and it should be able to be possible through a earmark appropriation. I want to have a conversation with him to find out why it hasn't happened.
My quick question before Matt speaks is, does not the state have, given the drought conditions, the emergency declarations, and the movement towards looking for more storage, there seems to be counter purposes going on here. Has the state expressed any interest in being involved in this process? And then Matt, you had a comment. Why don't you go ahead with your comment, Matt, and any question you might have can be answered at the same time.
Thank you, Chair. So just to set the record straight. FERC does not care about the water, and PG&E does not care about the water. This is what's considered a power source, and the water is lost to them. They have no interest in it, and they don't maintain it. They don't have any stake in that. So FERC is only interested in power generation. PG&E in this situation is only interested in power generation. Speaking to other electeds' feelings on this situation, it's long-standing statements that a two-basin solution is what is preferred by many some electeds in key situations. That means a stopping of the water coming through Potter Valley and through the power station, and isolating the watersheds from each other, which if you live in the Ukiah area and the Russian River Valley area, you would know that that cripples much of Mendocino, inland Mendocino County, as well as a lot of Sonoma County. So as far as questioning, what the thoughts are behind that, I think that can, if you look back at the record, Commissioner McCordy, you can see that that's actually what the reasoning is for the potential slowdown of funds coming out.
I think you're right, Matt. I'm not sure that the congressman would necessarily agree. He assured us that he is thinking of a two-basin solution where basically there would still be a water transfer to the Russian River Basin. But I know certainly that there's a pretty large contingent of people that, and it's particularly in Humboldt County and in the Eel River watershed, that would like to see it stopped. So,
I would suggest that you actually look at his record a little bit closer and statements that he's made in the past in open and in public.
Yeah, I'm trying not to be naive about this. I'm trying to be kind of neutral so that I don't piss him off right away, because we do have to work with him. The one thing that politically that concerns me is that Lake County has been pretty well shut out of the conversation, and we need to hear from them, because I mean this is a classic environmental justice case of poor disadvantaged communities not having the say in decision making, and that also includes a good chunk of the upper Russian River, Mendocino County neighborhoods too, because we're not exactly wealthy, and it's not like we have alternatives.
And for edification, it was attempted to have Lake County represented in the partners group, but unfortunately, some of the partners declined to let that happen. It was originally the intent to add them in, as well as Humboldt, because they are all players.
Yeah, correct. As you can see, this is very, very complex, and politically, biologically, hydrologically, this is a classic problem that's going to need a lot of good minds. And as my predecessor, Carrie Brown, said, hey, this will be going on long after you and I are around. This is not going to be a quick solution. You can count on litigation. And even the congressman said, instead of spending all the money on litigation, let's spend it on solving the problem. And if he's really sincere about that, that's a good thing. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how it plays out.
All right. Well, thank you all for the discussion and educating us all a little bit more on what's happening on the ground. I don't believe LAFCO has a role to play in this process. Is that correct, Uma and Scott?
No, not at this time.
No.
All right. So we're not going to be able to agendize this discussion, but thank you so much for bringing it into our report so that we're all somewhat aware of what's going on.
You bet.
And with that, unless there's further commissioner comments, we are set to adjourn to the November 8th meeting.
Just as a
yes, Uma.
As a reminder, it's the meeting on the 8th starts at 10 o'clock. And we will be doing I will be in the office during the meeting so that we can receive any protests during the meeting in person. And we'll be
Uma,
sending- Yes.
Uma, is there other items on the agenda other than the protest?
The only other item is the consent resolution to continue the remote meetings through the December meeting.
Okay,
That's all.
because, one of the things that I think both the commission and the participants need to understand is this hearing is extremely limited. It's just to accept protests. There's no discussion.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure we'll get some anyway, but there's no talk, it's not, there's no jurisdiction to consider the substance of the action.
So basically then, as chair, I'll be eliciting yay or nay, support or non-support from each speaker that might come forward. And that's basically it.
Yes, I mean, I think you need to start out explaining the very limited
Mhm.
role of this hearing. It's just to accept protests.
Okay.
A lot, I've seen this so many times where people go to the protest hearing thinking that they can actually convince somebody to change their mind.
Well, LAFCO has already acted, and it's now up to the public in the city and the district to carry this forward, correct?
Yes, and but I think it'll be helpful if Uma announces at the beginning that so here's the registered voters, 25% is X.
Got it. So with that, we're looking to adjourn, and thank you, staff. This meeting is I think reaching record territory at an hour. So
Wow.
thank you all.
Mhm.
And we'll see each other again shortly. 8 days. Need a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Frohnberger?
Thank you. Bye all. Thank you for the meeting, Uma.